Welcome to Small Town Conservative. I'm a normal person from a normal town, and today I wanted to do a deep dive into someone who's up and coming in conservative politics. Or is she? Before we get started, please hit that subscribe button if you're interested in learning more about the ins and outs of politics through a small town conservative's perspective. Governor Kristi Noem was born and raised in South Dakota. She grew up on a ranch with her family. She did go to college, but she came home tragically after her dad had died in a ranch accident, which is awful. She took over the business and she eventually added a hunting lodge and a restaurant, and it became something big enough where the three siblings that she had could come and work on the business also. It was actually something that her dad had dreamed about, and she was able to fulfill it. It's pretty cool. She did finish college by going to local classes and online classes and got a degree in business. So it's no wonder that she became pretty popular in South Dakota, given that agriculture and business are big parts of their economy. In 2006, Kristi Noem won her seat in the state Congress, and then in 2010, she won her seat on the United States House of Representatives for Congress. By the way, South Dakota only has one congressional seat, and it was currently being held by Stephanie Sandlin, who is a Democrat. Now, Sandlin was a pretty conservative Democrat as far as they go, but Noem was able to distance herself from Sandlin by exploiting the fact that she was continually voting for Nancy Pelosi, particularly when she voted to make Nancy Pelosi the Speaker of the House. I don't know if you know this, but Republicans are not a big fan of Nancy Pelosi, and I'm not entirely sure if Democrats are a big fan of her either. Noem would go on to serve 4 terms in Congress, and while she was there, her biggest priorities were tax reform, cutting government spending, and she also talked a lot about keeping United States energy local instead of outsourcing it, and also she was a big supporter of the Keystone Pipeline.
We are cutting spending. We are going to cut the growth in government. We're going to have a smaller, more limited government. Those are our goals. We came here as normal, everyday people running businesses, and think that perspective has been sorely needed here in D.C.
In 2016, Kristi decides that she's going to run for governor, and she goes up in the primaries against Attorney General Marty Jackley. Now, things were really tight, and the way that she was trying to advantage herself over him was claiming that she was going to break the status quo, actually effectuate change for the Republican Party, which would have been a breath of fresh air. And it was a really tight race up until the end. The last couple of weeks, there was kind of the settlement scandal that got drug out into the political stage.
Kaiser says Attorney General Marty Jackley is partially to blame, and now he is pointing the finger back at her.
So this woman, she had claimed that she was sexually harassed at work. It sounded like it was pretty legitimate. And when she reported it, basically her job kept demoting her and moving her away from her home location. And she eventually had to quit. So she goes and she sues the state. The state grants her a $1.5 million settlement. So they're getting ready to kind of set up her payment for her settlement. And then all of a sudden, she's seen with Noem at an event, and she has an NDA coming across her desk along with her settlement.
Once a jury awarded her a settlement late last year, that's when she says things started to go awry.
Attorney General Marty Jackley says he played no role in her settlement, but Laura Zylstra Kaiser isn't sure what to believe.
And here's what the text message said. I just talked with Marty on your case. Hope that is okay. May I call you to be an intermediary directly with him to have no appeals? There are appealable issues, but he has final say.
They were kind of withholding the settlement until she signed the NDA, and she couldn't figure out why that had to do with anything.
In my lawsuit, Laura Zylstra Kaiser versus Brian Gortmaker, that was my lawsuit. But in this agreement, it says Marty Jackley. The DCI's attorney said they didn't have any money to pay me.
So of course that becomes public, and Jackley was pretty upset that Noem would use this to her political advantage.
Jackley accused Kaiser, her attorneys, and Representative Kristi Noem of using Kaiser's story in campaign ads to undermine Jackley's bid for governor.
Which I don't know if you've been watching, but that's pretty much what's done around here. But there were a lot of negative ads between Jackley and between Noem, so this was no different.
Marty Jackley, mistakes, scandals, judgment we can't afford.
So that actually did push Noem over the edge. She wound up beating Jackley with a 14-point advantage. So South Dakota always votes in Republican governors. I think it's been since 1978 they've had Republicans as their governor. So it was no surprise that she would then go on to win the seat against the Democrat nominee. As South Dakota's governor, she pretty much acted like a typical Republican in her state and across the nation. Now, she really got her name out with her response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember that? Yeah, we're still going through it.
Now, my approach to this virus was to provide South Dakotans with all of the information that I had available to me and to then allow them to exercise their freedom to make the best decisions for themselves and for their families.
South Dakota was the only state not to require any businesses or any churches to shut down because of the pandemic.
We took a unique path. We did not lock people up. We did not close any businesses in the state of South Dakota. Not once did we issue a shelter in place. I didn't even define what an essential business was, because I don't believe that I have the authority to tell you your business isn't essential.
They also never issued a mask mandate. So you can imagine this was really controversial, but a lot of the conservatives who were really dreading all of the government cram down were really excited about what Kristi Noem was doing.
Now, most governors shut down their states. What followed was record unemployment, businesses closed, most schools were shuttered, and communities suffered. And the U.S. economy came to an immediate halt. Now, let me be clear. COVID didn't crush the economy. Government crushed the economy. And then, just as quickly, government turned around and held itself out as the savior. And frankly, the Treasury Department can't print money fast enough to keep up with Congress's wish list.
They also left their kids in the classroom. They never sent their kids home because of the pandemic. And as a mom who had her kids home for a very long time and did that, oh my gosh, it sounds so nice to have been able to leave my kids in school. Her unemployment rate in the state of South Dakota never exceeded 3.3%. So she had the lowest unemployment rate in the country. I think she was tied with another state, but either way, when you see other states like New York having 9 or 10% unemployment rates, it was pretty amazing how she was able to keep her economy preserved during the pandemic. It's no surprise that this won her a lot of popularity in the conservative movement. In my opinion, the Republican Party is shifting heavily over into more of a libertarian approach to government. So basically like, leave me alone. I don't want to see you. Just stay out of my business. And that's kind of how I feel about government too. So she's really appealing to me. So I went to her website and her government website, and at the bottom of it, I noticed something that I thought was really interesting. Here's what it says: keeping taxes low, limiting government regulation, fighting government intrusion, and keeping government open and honest. So she definitely held on to those principles throughout immense pressure from the rest of the country, basically, to shut down and let government kind of rule over everyone else.
I talked to my general counsel. I consulted with constitutional attorneys. I really wanted to understand what my job was as a governor, what authority I had, and then also what authority I did not have, and stay within those bounds. I've just been a firm believer that when you have a leader overstep their authority in a time of crisis, that's really when you break this country.
So could she really be kind of this beacon of hope for Republicans? I mean, she's someone who is graceful, she's beautiful, she's super conservative, more libertarian leaning. She seems to respect her role with authority, and she holds up under immense pressure from the left and the right. So it's no wonder people are saying, run for president. We really like you. Because I really liked her upon reading all of this.
And we are hearing from some local Republicans they'd like Governor Noem to make a run for the White House in 2024.
Kristi for 2024!
Governor Noem has faced scrutiny from the left and the right. But on those public, on-air conversations, she always seems to navigate those conversations really well. Of course, when she decided to keep her state open with COVID-19, a lot of the media was giving her a lot of pressure for her decision. And she did go on a lot of interviews defending her position, which I thought was really brave of her. No doubt she was trying to get her name out there.
And I tell them all the time, the only reason that you've heard my name now is because the liberals came after me. So it has been interesting to watch them hold up governors such as Cuomo as the example and their hero in dealing with the virus. And now we really find out what he did that was
so horrible in his state and to see the duplicity and how the media treats people.
I thought that she handled those interviews really well. She was composed, she was confident, she was graceful, she didn't raise her voice, so she seemed really in control in those interviews. Probably the toughest interview that she went on was Face the Nation.
We just heard from Dr. Fauci, who said it is too early to peel back health restrictions and do things like not have mask mandates. And I know you don't have one in your state. How do you want to respond to him?
Well, I'd like to respond to something that you said. You indicated that I ignored medical advice. I didn't listen to my health experts, and I most certainly did. In South Dakota, we took this virus very seriously.
Her ability to defend her position is definitely going to serve her well if she does decide to run in 2024. And I'm sure she'll reference her response and her decision to not cram down government in her state will be something that she talks about on the stage as she's running. However, that composure and confidence will not win you loyalty from the conservative movement if they smell weakness, especially if you seem to publicly back down from other conservative issues. Conservatives are tired of limp noodle politicians like Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush, all of the rest. And any sign that you're going to kind of fall on that side of Republicans is going to get you disqualified fast. So like it or not, Kristi Noem is at risk of losing all of the credibility that she earned during COVID-19 in relation to a Title IX bill. Kristi Noem decided to spike a bill in South Dakota that would ban biological males from playing in biological female sports. This is after she had really been excited to sign the bill. Conservatives were all over her, and for good reason. This is the typical behavior that we're used to seeing from Republicans once they seem to bite into the government apple. So she went onto several major commentators to defend her position, namely Tucker Carlson. And he held her feet to the fire.
Legal scholars that I have been consulting with for many, many months say that I would very likely lose those litigation efforts. And I don't think that
so you're
families
saying,
in
so
South
hold on,
Dakota,
just to be clear, it's not the bill. You're saying
to sue many times over and over again.
But wait. So you're saying the NCAA threatened you, and you don't think you can win that fight. They said, if you sign this, we won't allow girls in South Dakota to play, and you don't think you can win in court, even though the public overwhelmingly supports you nationally, and so you're caving to the NCAA. I think that's what you're saying.
No, that's not right at all, Tucker. In fact, you're wrong.
Again, she did really well, like composure-wise in their interview, but things just aren't adding up. He even brought up the fact that she has the public's favor on this. This is something that people care about, and he's right.
Why not instead just say, bring it on, NCAA. I'm a national figure. Go ahead and try and exclude us. I will fight you in the court of public opinion and defend principle. Why not just do that?
According to this poll in Politico, this is something that a lot of Americans can get behind. So that leaves room for the question, is she being pressured by the NCAA? Is she afraid of them? And is she afraid of other corporate interests?
Here the NCAA comes in and says, if you do that, you're going to lose a court battle. And so you said, well, the bill can't go forward. You have a democratic process that arose from your own citizens. They want this bill, and you've stopped it. So I'm not really sure how this is defending women's sport. No, with respect.
So the next day, she goes on the Glenn Beck program, and she is going to kind of talk about her conversation with Tucker Carlson and defend her position further.
So can we pick that conversation up where you were last night about coalitions? Sure. Because you're getting a name that, you know, people, it's amazing how fast people can turn. People are saying on the right that you're caving, and it looks like you're lowering the flag. So tell me what you're doing with the coalition and why that's important.
So in this situation, the coalition that I'm forming is to go after the NCAA. They have been bullying states for a long time with their policies by forcing us to allow men to participate in women's sports.
It seems like she's scared that if she goes at this alone, she's going to lose. So she's going to create a coalition so that multiple states can get in on it together.
It's not the NCAA that you're worried about alone. It's what these organizations can do with the woke capital and the woke businesses.
That's exactly it.
She's scared if she fights this battle alone that the NCAA will win in court and be able to use that win as a political weapon against other states who try to do similar things as South Dakota.
I'm a small state. South Dakota's small. We had to fight hard to even get any tournaments or games in the state of South Dakota. And I recognize that the NCAA can come in and crush me and can make an example out of me and then point to South Dakota and say, see, no other state better challenge us whatsoever.
So she goes on there, she talks about the coalition, and by the end of the interview, she seems to have won over Glenn Beck on the whole situation.
Governor Kristi Noem, I honestly didn't know for sure which way how this interview was going to end. But I can tell you I am happy to say you haven't disappointed me. I think you're doing the exact right thing. And a lot of people don't understand that yet because they're so used to politicians caving. But thank you for that.
States like Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi are all signing similar legislature that she didn't end up signing in their own states. And they're saying that they don't need a coalition to do it. So they're obviously taking the opportunity to appear more bold in their decision making here. Now, Idaho signed a bill like this in 2020, and now they're held up in a bunch of legal battles. So maybe Kristi looked at that and decided that that's not something that she wants to run into, but who knows? Either way, she appears to be left in the dust at the moment. And if she can't resolve this problem, she's not going to have a very great chance of becoming a nominee for the 2024 presidential election. Since then, she's had a lot of trouble negotiating with the legislature in her own state to come up with a bill that they're happy with. So in the meantime, she signed 2 executive orders that would reserve girls' sports for children who were assigned female at birth. Now, this is a short-term solution and it has no teeth to it. So she likely only did this to signal to her state that she's still interested in to kind of make clear what her position on this topic is. She's going to have to effectuate bigger changes if she wants to do anything meaningful here. Maybe she'll show us that she's the smartest conservative in the room by drafting bills that can actually hold their weight in court, or maybe she's going to dissolve into the background as other Republicans exploit her weakness in this area. Either way, she's definitely worth watching and keeping an eye out, and I, for one, am a fan. I'm curious to see how she decides to handle this. She's starting to look and smell more like a traditional Republican, but maybe that's just in the moment and, maybe she'll be able to come out on top on this issue. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll like and subscribe this video if you want more conservative content like this. Thank you guys. Bye.